Okay, so in this section that's labeled end of semester, that's here at the top of your Canvas page, okay, I am attempting to kind of just document everything that we're talking about, over these next few days. So here it says Virtual Wednesday, and we're going to do 2 problems today, okay? The first is going to be Unit 11, Writing Classes, okay? And the problem is stated right here, okay? So if you click on this, you will get access to a Word document. I'm going to ask everyone to read that problem, okay? And I'm going to ask everyone also to go ahead and log in at the Practice AP website here, okay? And when you log in, I want you to go to your assigned questions, okay? So for your group, I apologize. Let me go to assigned questions, and then we can go to your group, which is period 4. This is what you all should see, okay? And we're going to work on problem pr23-Rem Dups, or remove duplicates, okay? So those are the 2 problems that we will work on today. And again, you can access the problem description here from the main Canvas page. And note, when we get to the second problem, which is going to be remove duplicates at the A+ computer science site, I've provided the test class for us to kind of establish our general approach to the solution and where the data is coming from. And there's clearly more than one way to solve this problem, but I want to emphasize actually creating classes and writing solutions and calling methods, which is what I've highlighted here in these last 2 statements. So we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail. You all take the time to a minute or 2 to read over these 2 problems, okay, for the Virtual Wednesday. And I'm going to check roll silently while you all actually are getting set up, okay? When I actually write the solution, I'm going to write them both. I'm going to write one here in JGrasp, and then the other I'll write on the actual A+ website as we actually discuss it together, or at least as I discuss it, okay? So I'm going to check the roll now, and y'all take a moment to read the problems, please. So just so you can feel good that I do see you, Jack, Andrew, Davis, Nicole, Walker, Karma, Kaylin, Emily, Grace, Christoph, Morgan, Yana, and Blake. 100%. Good job. The seniors aren't here today. So, all right. So we'll jump right in, and we'll start with this first problem. Okay? All right. Hopefully you all have had a chance to kind of look at this problem, but if you haven't, we're going to go ahead and discuss this problem. And I'm going to go ahead and just write it up. And if y'all have any questions, hopefully we'll get a chance to, revisit this in the future if we need to. The problem does not ask us to actually create a test class. We just need to write this one class using the information and the constraints that are provided here on the page. So write a ship class. So, I mean, clearly we're going to have a new Java program here. We're going to have a class, and the class will be named ship. Okay, that's pretty clear. And it says the ship will have X, Y, and speed properties. So these X, Y, and speed properties, okay, will be private data, it appears, and they're integer numbers, okay? So X, Y, and speed are all integers, and I have to provide 3 constructors, an equals method, and a toString class for the class ship, okay? So let's go ahead and get started over here on the right hand side. And I know that I'm going to have what? Private int x, private int y, private int speed. Okay? That's specifically stated right in the problem. And I know that if I have 3 private variables here that are integers, I'm going to have at least one constructor to initialize each of those integers to their correct values. So it appears in the description, well, it doesn't appear, yeah, the description says one constructor must be a default, okay? So here in JGrasp, I'll say default constructor. Okay, and one constructor must be an X and Y only. So I'll say X and Y only constructor. And the last one says an X, Y, and speed. X, Y, and speed constructor. Okay, it looks like they want us to write an equals method. All right, they don't give us very many details about how the equals method should be written, so we can make up our own there. And then we need to provide a speed up method. Look, you must provide a method speed up that will increase the speed by a parameter x. So we need an increase speed method that will increase the speed by, what is that, parameter x. Okay. And then lastly, it looks like they're asking us to provide a toString. And the toString method simply does one thing. It provides useful information about this object as in the form of a string. Okay, so these are all the things that they're asking us to write, and we should have enough information here to kind of go ahead and put these things together. This is a really good problem, really good strong emphasis on the fundamentals here. So the default constructor. The default constructor, remember that the constructor must have the same name as the class, but the default constructor has no parameters. So I'll just go ahead and specify this. This has no parameters, okay? So if I don't get any data here, we need to probably assign default values. So what's the default value for an integer x? That's going to be 0. Y is an integer, that default value will be 0, and my speed will be equal to 0 as well. Okay? So that's the default constructor. The default constructor is actually provided if you don't specify one on your own. Okay? So now the next constructor says an x and a y constructor. So ship is going to take in an integer. I'm going to call it xn, just to make sure it's clear that it's an input variable, and yn Okay, those are my two parameters for my X and Y constructor. So my X value is just going to get updated to xn. Whatever that parameter actually is equal to, I'm going to use each of them, the X and the Y, to initialize my private data here. Okay, so since I don't have a third parameter for speed, I can give it my own value here. As long as it's a valid integer, I'm just going to say 0. I'm going to take the default value for actual speed. Okay, the X and Y constructor. So the third constructor here is going to take in an integer. I'm going to say xn, and I'm going to say an integer yn, and then I will say an integer speed in. Okay, those are my three inputs, or my parameters. X is going to be equal to whatever the xn value is. Y is going to be equal to the yn value that's passed in on input. And then my speed will be initialized to speed in. Okay, so now I have three different constructors, one in which they all get 0, one in which we assign X and Y and speed defaults to 0, and then we have one where there's an explicit value passed in as a parameter for each X, Y, and Z parameter there. Okay, I'm going to assume, okay, that two ships are the same if and only if all three of these integers are the same, meaning the X is the same as the Y are the same, and the speed is the same. So when we compare, if we were trying to determine if two things are equal, I'm going to have a public Boolean equals, and what am I actually comparing it to? So you're going to be comparing this to, I'm going to call this ship other. Okay, so I'm going to be given an object, another ship. I'm comparing two ships. Okay, and I'm going to do this in one line here. Okay, now please pay attention. We're going to run into a problem here that I'm going to have to correct. Okay, so pay attention. I'm going to go to the X value for this object, and I want to know if it is equal to the X value for the other object. However, the X value is private, okay, in each of these objects. So it might be useful for me to provide some type of accessor method, okay, for each of my private data. So I'm going to say public int get X, and it's just going to return, it's just going to return X, and then I'm going to have a public int get Y that will simply return the value of Y. Notice how I'm kind of making it hopefully easier to read by putting them on the same line here. Public int, and I'm going to say get speed, that will simply return the speed. So now I've provided some type of public means of accessing my public means of accessing my private instance variables that are declared at the top of this class. Now when I go back to the to the equals method, I can actually say get X, and I don't have to be concerned about access privileges or different type of access problems. And note the AND operator, okay? Y is going to be equal to the other object dot get the Y, okay? And now we'll be also comparing the speed for the current object, and that has to be equal to other object, that is a ship, dot get speed. Okay, So that is actually a one-line solution, given we have these three accessor methods that give us access to the what? The private data in this other ship object, okay? So now at this point we have all of the constructors are there. We need to write a speed up method now, right? The speed up method is going to be a public void. This is a mutator method, okay? This is a mutator method, meaning it will update the value of a private instance variable. Hopefully that makes a little sense. We can access them. Well, now we actually have the ability to change the speed. I hope that it makes a little sense that a ship would change speed. So we have a speed up, and it has to take in a variable x, as you know, that's what the problem description says. This is hopefully really straightforward. We have access to the speed. I'm just going to say speed is going to be equal to the current value of speed plus x. So I'll abbreviate using a shortcut operator. There's no need for me to do anything more there. That simply updated the value of my speed. Now in the toString, it just provides useful information. I'm going to have fun and be creative with it. Public. Actually, I'm going to give you something that I recommend, is that if you ever are really needing access or information, you know, about a particular object, we can format this data. I'm going to say return. If I print this object, I want it to tell me it's a ship, okay? And then my x is going to be equal to, x will be equal to, and then I'll concatenate x, and then I'll use a comma, y equal to that string, and then I'll concatenate the value of y. And next I will concatenate my speed. So comma, speed will be equal to, and then I'll concatenate my speed here, okay? And just to make it look really nice and eloquent, hopefully we'll include something at the end here to kind of close off the bracket and give us a nice string that actually prints all of the relevant information about the ship to the screen, okay? That is the entire solution here to the ship class as stated in this problem. I will post this solution for you. If you all have any questions about it, hey, we will revisit this in class very briefly when I show you all where the solutions are in next class period, okay? But it'll be, say that again?
Could you scroll down, please?
I can scroll down. I can do that, okay? Now, I'm not going to waste too much time on this problem, okay? So we're going to keep it moving because class here ends at 11 o'clock, and we have like about 9-10 minutes to go here, which should be plenty of time, okay? So pardon me moving on. I'm not going to rush, but I am going to move on, okay? Take a screenshot or do what you need to do, okay? Because we're about to keep it moving. Let me see if I can get as much on this screen as possible for you. Okay? Hopefully, if you want to hang out for a minute or so after in the conclusion, I'll show you whatever you need to see. Okay? So now the next problem that we're going to work on, again, is at the A+ practice site. Please log in here and you need to walk through this problem. And again, I will provide the solution to this problem on the actual Canvas page. And if you recall, just note that on the Canvas, I've already given you the starter code that is the test class. So when I scroll and go right back over to my practice site, I'm going to start with this test case here and an explanation of the data before we write any code. Okay? So here, on this website, it says remove duplicates. It says write a program that removes duplicate letters in a string and prints the remaining letters in their original order. Okay, on input, the first line of the data set is an integer that represents a number of lines to follow. Okay, so let's look at this input. It says 4. All right, each of the remaining lines contains a string of one or more words consisting of only uppercase letters of the alphabet. There is exactly one space between words. So this is what the file looks like. There are 4 lines. On output, each letter is output only the first time it occurs in the string, no spaces. So after you all examine this problem, you'll see that we look at each letter and we add it to this output. If and only if that letter does not exist where in this output. How do we check to see if a given letter is in this output? Well, we're going to use index of. Hopefully, we see the index of is going to be the key, right? And we need to make sure it says no spaces. We need to check for check to see if the particular letter is actually included in the what? In the result that we're building. And then we need to check to see if it's a space. And if it's a space, we'll ignore it. So make sure that before we put pen to paper here, that we understand how we're going to solve this problem. Remember from our poster board facts that we build strings one letter at a time or one substring at a time. So in this case, it looks like we're going to have to go through every single letter in each line. First line, go through every letter. Read the next line, go through every letter. Read the next line, go through every letter, and so on. And for each letter, we want to check to see, okay, so we're going to start with an empty string and we're going to check to see if P is in our empty string, and it is not, so we'll add P. We'll check to see if E is in our empty string. If it is not, we will add the E. The T is not in our empty string, so we will add T. But look at this second E in Peter. The second E in Peter has already been added. So the index of should return something that is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? So that's the general approach that we'll use in creating this output string. So now let's look at the code that I've provided to you already. This code reads the file, and then it reads that first line as an integer. So we know how many lines are going to be in the file. And then on line 10, I just move my cursor to the beginning of the next line, and now we are ready to start reading each line. So I read the next line as a string, and I say, file, go get the next line. And then I'm going to pass that entire line into a new class called each letter. And I'm going to call this object E, and then I'm going to write this method, get each letter, and that is going to actually generate my output string, and then I'll just print it to the screen. Okay? So let's look at each letter. Okay? When I pass the string or the phrase to the actual constructor here, it becomes W, and we store W in Word. So Word will contain the entire Peter Pepper picked peppers, or whatever that phrase is up above, right? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, okay? That will be what the value of Word is. So now in each letter, remember, it returns a string, public string each letter. And we're going to begin with an empty string. Why do we begin with the empty string? Because it says, give me a string back. And we know that we process strings one letter or substrings at a time. So we're going to go through every single letter in the word. So we start at 0 and go as long as I is less than a length, we'll increase by 1. And on each iteration, I will grab the letter. Once I grab the letter, Okay, using substring, I could have used char at here. I'm naming that each letter as a string. And now I'm going to go to the result, which is an empty string to begin with, and I'll say, hey, is the index of that letter equal to -1? Meaning, it's only -1 if the letter is not found in result. If that's true, and I'm checking to see if the letter equals a space, and I use the not here. So if the letter does not equal a space, then I'll simply do what? Concatenate that letter onto the end of result. And I'll process the entire string asking that same question for every single letter. Hey, is that letter in the result? If it's not, and the letter is not a space, then go ahead and add it to letter. Again, is the letter contained inside a result? If that's a no, which means it equals to -1, and if the letter does not equal a space, then add it to the result. And we process all the letters, and then we return result. Okay? And you'll notice that when I test this code, hello, it works. All right? I think that was probably really fast and furious for a lot of you. Some of you all were hopefully able to follow along. Take a screen print, do what you need to do, okay, to make sure you document this. I'm going to post a video of everything that I've said today on the actual Canvas page. So if you just listened, you'd be able to follow along with this example in the form of a video if you want to revisit the solution at a later moment. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead, ask a question.
Can you scroll up for a second to the top?
Everything that is above what you see on the screen here is posted right here on the actual Canvas page for pr23-Java for today's lesson. So I shouldn't have to really move my screen because I've given you everything, okay, that is part of the test class, okay, here. It's already there. So I don't want to, remove duplicates. I don't want to move away from each letter here because this is really the portion that you all do not have. Lines 20 through 43 as part of the solution. Just know that I have I copied and pasted, right, the test class or class PR23 just before each letter here, okay? If you get this and you're willing to maybe come back later, okay, and revisit this, I am going to definitely make sure that the video is available for you, okay? I'm actually going to stop the recording of the video now, but I'm still going to answer questions for you all.